The mess hall at Forward Operating Base Granite Ridge was a living chaos. The smell of brunt coffee mingled with overcooked eggs, pungent and relentless, crawling into every corner. Steel trays clanged against counters like gunfire, boots scraped concrete, and the shouts, insults, and half-finished war stories collided in a symphony of noise. No one noticed the quiet figure moving through the crowd at first, not even the junior Marines pretending to be too busy to care. The chatter was loud, raw, untamed, but nothing could prepare anyone for what happened next. A single hand reached out, and in a motion so ordinary, so seemingly inconsequential, it grabbed a ponytail. The room froze. Not fully, but enough for the air to change, for every soldier to feel it in their chest. Silence built slowly, like a rising tide. 1 second it was chaos, the next, shock. He thought it was a joke. The corporal, broad-shouldered, chest-puffed, cocky as hell, leaned back in his chair, smirking, confident that he'd earned a laugh, a reaction, maybe a slap on the shoulder. He got none of it. From the corner of the room, she watched without seeming to watch. Lieutenant Commander Morgan Hayes moved like a shadow with substance, calm, deliberate, every step measured. Her uniform was perfect but stripped of flair. Her sleeves rolled with military precision, hands steady, eyes scanning without focus, noticing everything. She didn't ask for attention. She didn't need it. Yet something about her presence slowed the pulse of the room, subtle as a storm gathering beyond the horizon. "Hey," the corporal barked, expecting a smile or an eye roll. Instead, the hand he had yanked returned to the table. No emotion, no flinch, nothing. He turned, narrowed his eyes, leaned forward, louder this time. "Don't ignore me, lady." The air around him thickened, tension stretching like a wire, and then it snapped. She moved with frightening elegance, one fluid motion, precise and brutal in its restraint. Her grip locked onto his wrist, she twisted and stepped into his balance, slamming him onto the metal table face first. The clang was deafening, trays rattled, the laughter, the chatter, the casual arrogance, all gone. His breath left him with a sharp, painful gasp. The room held its collective breath. Then she whispered, cold as ice, directly into his ear, "I warned you." The corporal, still reeling, tried to laugh it off, but his bravado faltered as the first whispers began. Chief Petty Officer Dylan Ross lowered his fork, eyes wide. Someone muttered, "Oh no." The entire room slowed, every soldier subconsciously recognizing something they couldn't yet name. It wasn't fear exactly, it was respect, awe, and something like disbelief all at once. "You've got exactly 3 seconds," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through every heart in the mess hall. "Step back, sit down." The corporal scoffed, shaking his head, trying to mask panic with defiance. "Or what?" he challenged, voice cracking. She didn't answer with words, only action. Another twist, a flick of her foot, a shift of her weight, and suddenly he was pinned, not cruelly, not excessively, but with absolute authority that left no doubt. Every muscle in his body screamed resistance, but it was pointless. The SEALs in the room, seasoned, decorated, hardened warriors, watched, silent but alert. They all recognized her now, not just a commander, not just a woman in charge, a war hero, proven in ways they had only heard whispered in debriefs and legends. Eyes met across the room, questions and admiration collided. How had they never known she was here? How had she arrived unnoticed? "I said step back," Hayes repeated, her voice low, almost conversational, yet threaded with lethal precision. "Now." The corporal swallowed. Slowly, painfully, he complied. The room exhaled collectively as she released him, stepping back with the calm of someone who had already moved on, already imagined the next step. No one spoke. Not immediately. No one dared. The air was thick with tension, respect, and a hint of fear, the kind that comes when someone proves mastery without theatrics. Whispers spread. "Did you see that?" someone asked. "That's commander level." Another muttered, "That was clean, surgical." The corporal, pale and shaken, stared at her, realizing not only had he misjudged her, but he had underestimated the storm hidden beneath that composed exterior. There would be stories. Later, in hushed tones, soldiers would retell it, but none would capture the full magnitude of the discipline, calm, and raw authority she wielded effortlessly. Morgan Hayes didn't gloat. She didn't bark commands, didn't raise her voice, didn't demand applause. She simply moved through the room with deliberate calm, placing her tray down with quiet precision, eyes scanning, noting, calculating. Every gesture a lesson in control. Every pause a message of leadership is not loud, it is unyielding, it is undeniable. And then came the twist that made jaws drop across the mess hall. One of the Marines whispered to another, She's not just a new commander, that's Morgan Hayes, the one who led Echo Squad through Operation Silent Dagger." Names that were legends in SEAL lore, names that inspired awe and fear, resonated now in the low murmur that spread like wildfire. Everyone realized at once, this wasn't just authority, this was history walking among them, disguised as calm. Soldiers shifted in their seats, eyes wide, hearts hammering. The atmosphere was surreal. Laughter had died completely. The casual arrogance of youth had been shredded with precision. Respect had been carved into the room with quiet elegance. Some nodded subtly, acknowledging her presence. Others stayed still, unsure of what they'd witnessed. All of them, however, knew one thing. No one would ever challenge Morgan Hayes again. Not in the mess hall, not in the field, not anywhere. Even the corporal, head bowed, eyes wide, whispered, I didn't know." She glanced at him briefly, expression unreadable, a subtle nod. That small gesture carried volumes, lessons in discipline, authority, and respect, all condensed in a fraction of a second. He had learned, finally, that leadership wasn't about yelling, about ego, or about being the loudest. Leadership was quiet, deadly precise, and unforgettable. Outside the mess hall, the chatter resumed slowly, hesitant, fragmented. The scent of coffee and eggs mingled with something else now, awe, tension, and an unspoken understanding. Morgan Hayes moved on, unhurried, every step deliberate, every motion commanding without commanding, a perfect storm contained within a composed figure. Those who had seen her knew the story would circulate, whispered in bunkers, in training rooms, and over comms for months to come. And still, she did not seek recognition. She didn't need it. The room would remember her, the soldiers would remember her, and most importantly, they would never forget the day a simple hair pull stopped the mess hall in its tracks. The shock, the awe, the sudden realization of the power contained in calm authority, this was just the beginning, because anyone who thought the chaos of the battlefield would be different had another thing coming. Morgan Hayes had arrived, and she didn't announce herself with fanfare. She didn't need to. The legacy had already spoken. The valley yawned beneath them like a predator waiting for prey. SEAL Team Shadow had moved in under cover of darkness, every step measured, every breath synchronized. Morgan Hayes watched from the ridge, binoculars trained, her jaw tight, mind racing through probabilities, angles, and contingencies. They had walked straight into a trap, the kind of trap that wasn't obvious until it was too late. Enemy fire erupted like a storm, sharp, precise, relentless. Bullets ricocheted, kicking up dust and rock. An IED detonated ahead, throwing a medic into the air. Screams pierced the night, adrenaline screaming through every soldier's veins. "Contact! High left! Sniper fire!" a team member shouted, ducking behind a boulder. Hayes didn't flinch. She keyed the radio, her voice calm but sharp. "Hold your positions. Cover each other. Eyes open. Watch the angles." The team obeyed instinctively. They had trained for chaos, but nothing could prepare them for this level of coordination from the enemy. Perfectly set ambush points, overlapping fields of fire, traps designed to corral them into kill zones. Every choice mattered. One wrong move, and they were done. A blast tore through the valley floor, hurling sand and debris into the air. Operator Cole Martinez, a young SEAL barely out of advanced training, went down, blood pooling under him. Another, Jackson Reed, screamed as shrapnel grazed his arm. Panic tried to claw its way into the team's rhythm, but Hayes' voice sliced through it like a scalpel. Martinez, cover your left. Reed, suppress that ridge. Move now. She was everywhere at once, a phantom presence that kept order in the chaos. Fast, slow, precise. Her mind raced with the enemy's possible maneuvers, the team's limited options, and the clock ticking toward disaster. Then came the first twist that no one expected. An A-10 Thunderbolt screamed across the valley sky, rogue, unsanctioned, yet perfectly timed. Morgan had called in a favor, a name whispered in war rooms and debriefs, Hawk, an ace pilot who owed her once. The valley erupted in explosions, enemy positions obliterated before they even knew what hit them. Shock froze the militia for a fraction of a second too long, enough for Hayes to seize the moment. Go, move east, cover each other, she yelled. Her own rifle barked as she sprinted across open ground, drawing fire, impossible courage painted in every motion. Martinez crawled to cover, breathing ragged, eyes wide as he saw the commander take point, bullets slamming into the earth around her. She didn't hesitate. She didn't flinch. She wasn't reckless. She was calculated. Every movement had a purpose. Every risk was weighed in milliseconds. Her presence was magnetic, terrifying, and inspiring all at once. The team followed instinctively, drawn to her leadership as if tethered by invisible cords. Enemy forces regrouped, snapping back with renewed fury. Mortars arced overhead, tracer fire cut lines across the smoke-filled valley. Hayes' mind was a storm of calculations. She split the team into cover teams, maneuver squads, and suppressive units, anticipating enemy counters before they happened. Every choice she made carried a dual purpose: survival and offensive pressure. She was both shield and spear, calm under fire, a genius playing a deadly game of chess with lives on the line. Then the unexpected hit again. From the opposite ridge, a lone militia sniper emerged, impossibly accurate. Reed froze, sight on the target, unable to move. Hayes reacted instinctively. A single shot from her sidearm took the sniper off balance, not fatal, but enough to disrupt the kill shot. She whispered through comms, "Stay on the move, eyes open, always open." Each operator's survival hinged on her split-second decisions, each heartbeat a testament to training, courage, and trust. The team surged forward, moving through pockets of chaos. Hayes guided them over shattered rocks, around smoldering debris, dragging the wounded when necessary, covering fire, shouting orders, cajoling, motivating, inspiring. Every operator felt her presence, an anchor in the maelstrom. The valley screamed, the enemy roared, yet Hayes' voice remained the center, the eye of the storm. Minutes stretched into an eternity. They reached a choked pass where ambush points overlapped with IEDs, a deadly corridor with no margin for error. The militia was ready, weapons leveled, eyes locked. Hayes surveyed the geometry of death. She took a breath, half-second pause, and then executed a maneuver no one expected. A feint, precise, audacious, drawing fire toward a natural rock formation. Explosions erupted behind cover, and the enemy's formation fractured. Another mind-blowing twist. She had predicted their reaction, using chaos to create opportunity. The team advanced, moving like a single organism. Martinez, bloodied but breathing, fired with accuracy, covering teammates. Every operator was alive because of her vision, her nerves of steel, and her willingness to place herself directly in danger. Hayes never shouted for courage. Her actions demanded it. She wasn't just commanding, she was exemplifying heroism in real time. And then the final, jaw-dropping twist came. A second wave of enemy militia, larger than expected, began flanking from the west ridge. Hayes keyed the radio again, voice calm, almost casual. "Hawk, you're up again. East Ridge, hot. Make it count." Seconds later, the A-10 screamed back into action, dropping precision strikes that tore through enemy positions. The combination of rogue air support and Hayes' tactical genius shattered the ambush, leaving the enemy reeling, stunned, and disoriented. When the dust settled, the team emerged battered, exhausted, bleeding, yet alive. Operators hugged, patted backs, whispered gratitude and disbelief. Hayes surveyed her team, eyes scanning, calculating, ensuring no one left behind, every injury accounted for. The valley was littered with evidence of chaos, yet not a single operator was lost, not one. Her courage, her tactical brilliance, her unflinching nerve had turned near-certain disaster into survival and victory. And through it all, Hayes remains calm, controlled, silent when necessary, furious when necessary, a conductor orchestrating life and death with unerring precision. She dragged Martinez to cover, checked his wounds, then signaled the team forward. "Keep moving, don't stop until we're clear," she shouted, voice rising, snapping through smoke and gunfire. Every word was a lifeline, every command a calculated strike against chaos. By the time they exited the valley, the team knew, without question, that Hayes wasn't just a commander. They were witnessing the real thing. Tactical genius, nerves of steel, bravery under impossible conditions. European and American soldiers would recognize it instantly. Canadian or Australian operators watching later in debriefs would nod in respect. Every split-second decision had mattered. Every calculated risk had saved lives. Every heart in the valley had felt her presence, and it would never be forgotten. Even the rogue A-10 pilot, Hawk, radioed in afterward, disbelief and awe thick in the voice. "Morgan, I've flown with legends before, but I've never seen anyone move like you tonight." Hayes only smiled faintly, brushing dust from her uniform, scanning the horizon for further threats. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate. Not yet. This was survival. This was leadership. This was mastery. The team regrouped, hearts pounding, bloodied but alive. All of them changed. What had begun as a routine insertion had morphed into a maelstrom of chaos, ambush, and firepower. Yet Hayes' leadership had not only kept them alive, it had made them a single, coordinated, unstoppable force. Operators whispered to each other, muttering words that would later become legend. "She's unreal. I've never seen anyone do that." And through every shred of fear, panic, adrenaline, and chaos, Hayes' presence remained the constant. Calm under fire, brilliant under pressure, brave beyond measure. Every soldier survived, every plan executed, every enemy broken. Tactical genius met gutsy, raw courage, and the valley would never forget the night SEAL Team Shadow escaped certain death. The base was quiet now. Eerily so. Granite Ridge had survived the night's chaos, but the tension lingered in the air like smoke that refused to settle. Lieutenant Commander Morgan Hayes walked through the compound with measured steps, every boot on the concrete echoing purpose. She had brought SEAL Team Shadow back alive from near certain death, yet that alone would not shield her from the bureaucratic storm awaiting inside the Legal Affairs Office. Rumors of a complaint had circulated faster than classified intel, whispered by those who had survived firefights without blinking. The room was sterile, cold, and intimidating, a stark contrast to the chaos of the battlefield. Senior officers sat behind a long oak table, expressions neutral, rehearsed. Every word, every gesture had been measured in preparation for her arrival. Hayes stood at the opposite end, unshaken. No medals gleamed on her chest, no grandiose display, just a single, unyielding figure who had already proven herself in ways few could comprehend. "Lieutenant Commander Hayes," one officer began, voice clipped, "we are here to review your conduct in both the mess hall and during the recent operation in the valley. You understand the gravity of these proceedings." Hayes inclined her head, calm, measured. "I do, sir." The first questions were subtle, testing. "Some witnesses report that you used unnecessary physical force in the mess hall. Can you explain why that was justified?" She took a breath, voice even, eyes locked on the officer. "He initiated physical contact. I ended it. No escalation, no lasting injury, no collateral harm. That is the summary of facts. Anything beyond that is speculation. Murmurs rippled through the room. Her tone was firm, unshakable, and yet devoid of arrogance. Every syllable carried authority, reasoning, and lethal clarity. Then came the push. A younger officer leaned forward, trying to corner her. But, Commander, could you not have reported it instead of engaging directly? Couldn't the military protocol have been followed? Hayes's eyes narrowed slightly, just enough to convey intensity without rage. Sir, hesitation in moments that test discipline results in casualties. People die when hesitation is allowed to dictate action. My engagement preserved life and order. Nothing more, nothing less. The room went silent. Her calm was a weapon, sharper than any blade, sharper than their pointed questions. Political undertones crept in next. Another officer, older, more experienced, tilted the conversation to bureaucratic implications. Command decisions, especially under fire, must be weighed against chain of command protocols. Did you consider the implications of your actions on the chain of command? Hayes leaned slightly forward, voice soft but cutting. The chain of command exists to prevent chaos. Chaos was already present. My responsibility is life, mission, and team cohesion. Chain of command theory is irrelevant when operators are pinned and lives are at stake. A subtle shift in the room. Some admired, some seethed, yet none could deny the logic. Then the pressure ratcheted up. Your tactical decisions during the ambush were unorthodox. You authorized maneuvers and called in assets without approval. Do you understand the potential consequences? Hayes tilted her head, expression unchanging. Sir, I understand full consequences. My decision ensured 0 fatalities and mission success. Every choice was deliberate, every risk calculated. I acted in accordance with the principles of command: protect the team, accomplish the objective, return all operators alive. That is my only mandate. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The young Marine corporal who had challenged her in the mess hall earlier sat at the edge of the room, wide-eyed, breathing shallow, witnessing authority and genius in full display. The tension mounted. Time dragged. Each second waited with anticipation. Would she be reprimanded, stripped of authority, or celebrated silently for brilliance few could understand? Hayes remained stoic, calm, observing reactions, reading intent, controlling the tempo of the room with subtle gestures. Her mind anticipated the next curve, the next question, the next attempt to manipulate her words. She did not flinch. She did not falter. Every response, every silence was precise, deliberate, and layered with logic that left no opening for criticism. And then came the final, shocking twist. The senior officer spoke, voice measured but impressed. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, after reviewing evidence and testimony, not only is no disciplinary action warranted, your command of SEAL Team Shadow is confirmed permanently. The room collectively exhaled. The relief, surprise, and awe were palpable. Whispers erupted among the junior officers. The corporal from the mess hall looked down, humbled, mouth slightly open, face pale. Respect, finally, had replaced arrogance. The weight of realization settled upon him. He had underestimated not just a commander, but a seasoned, battle-hardened hero who had earned her authority in ways he could never fully comprehend. Hayes allowed herself a subtle nod, acknowledging the team's loyalty and the hard-fought respect without a single word of self-congratulation. She didn't need applause. The room understood it anyway. Outside, SEAL Team Shadow waited, tense, watching, hearts pounding. When Hayes stepped through the door, silence greeted her at first. Then slowly, the nods began. A hand on a shoulder, eyes locking in quiet acknowledgement. No cheering, no theatrics, only the unspoken bond between operators and the commander who had earned every ounce of their trust and respect. The corporal approached hesitantly, voice barely above a whisper. I was wrong, Commander, about everything. Hayes studied him for a long, measured moment. Then faintly, she nodded. Learned from it. Simple. Final. The lesson was absolute. The humility, recognition, and respect were woven into the very fabric of the team. Every operator knew, unequivocally, who held command and why. Morgan Hayes turned to her team, voice low but commanding. Gear up. We have work to do. Operators obeyed instinctively. There was no question in anyone's mind about who led them, why they followed, or how far they would go to support her. Loyalty, trust, and respect had been forged in fire, forged in blood, forged in moments of both chaos and judgment. Hayes did not speak further. She didn't need to. The story of her authority, brilliance, and courage had been told in action, in decision, and in the unwavering loyalty of her operators. The base began to settle into uneasy quiet as whispers spread. European and American audiences would recognize the mastery of command. Canadian and Australian viewers would marvel at her tactical brilliance, composure under scrutiny, and unshakable authority. Stories would circulate, repeated in hushed tones, training rooms, and debriefs. Hayes had survived not only the battlefield, but the crucible of command scrutiny, emerging yet again, unbroken, brilliant, and respected beyond measure. Finally, she allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Every operator's eyes followed hers. Every heart recognized the weight of leadership she bore with calm precision. Morgan Hayes had not only navigated the chaos of combat, but also the storm of bureaucracy, politics, and ego. She had emerged unscathed, her authority cemented, and her team's loyalty absolute. The corporal from the mess hall and everyone else present would carry this lesson forever. True leadership is proven in moments of crisis, in the balance between courage and calm, and in decisions made with unwavering clarity and precision. The operators began to disperse, murmurs of admiration and respect echoing through the corridors. Hayes lingered for a moment, scanning the faces of her team, ensuring everyone understood their place, their purpose, and the bond forged through fire and discipline. "Let's move," she said, voice low but carrying weight. Every step she took reinforced authority. Every glance conveyed expectation, and every breath exuded control. European, American, Canadian, or Australian eyes watching this unfolding would never forget the measure of a true commander. And as the base finally began to breathe again, the night settling into quiet, Hayes allowed herself to reflect on the journey. Mess hall confrontation, battlefield chaos, inquiry, and ultimate confirmation. Her team was intact, her authority unchallenged, and respect had been earned in ways words alone could never convey. Every operator knew without doubt Morgan Hayes commanded because she had proven herself in moments that demanded courage, brilliance, and unshakable calm.